every time I look at this book, I'm like, you don't need me to sit here and yak at you. All you need is this book. This one is called The Mindful Path to Self-Compassion, Freeing Yourself from Destructive Thoughts and Emotions by Christopher Germer, PhD. And he's the guy that when I discovered this thing called self-compassion or loving kindness, he's like he researches it. He's the real deal. He's a therapist, but he's also says he's a clinical psychologist in private practice in Boston, clinical instructor of psychology at Harvard Medical School, and a founding member of the Institute for Meditation and Psychotherapy. He's co-editor of an acclaimed book for professionals called Mindfulness and Psychotherapy. He's the person who first made me think, and I think he says it also, that self-compassion could be, and probably is, especially in the West, more important than mindfulness itself. I mean, mindfulness is something that we do and practice, but self-compassion is the way that we do it. So we can use a mindfulness practice to very clinically or critically examine ourselves and the world around us, and see how messed up things are, right? Or we are. But self-compassion is the salve, it's the magic, it's the thing that leads to change, right? It's our way of relating to ourselves and to other people. And our way of relating to ourselves actually is the thing that leads to changes in relating to others. We might think it's the other way around. And I think subconsciously or semi-consciously, that is the way most of us go through life, thinking that if we can be good enough or nice enough to others, then we can treat ourselves well. We can feel nicely toward ourselves and be nice to ourselves. But the research and practice indicate that it doesn't work that way. It doesn't actually work that way. So I'm going to share a bunch of little excerpts that I hope are tied together in a coherent way for you across 2 chapters. And some of these things you may have heard me say already. And just taking a moment right now, because we are going to do some loving kindness meditation today. And it'll be the same one that we usually do, but maybe you'll have a little bit different insight or a little different slant on it or thinking about it after I go through some of these pieces. I want to pause, and because we're online, we're live now, pause and welcome all of you and welcome anyone who might be watching at home. So yes, this thing in the language of the Buddha, which is Pali, the translation of loving kindness is metta, M-E-T-T-A. So it's referred to often as metta meditation. When we do this loving kindness meditation that takes some form of may they be safe, may they be happy, may they be healthy, may they live with ease. And we apply that to ourselves as well as people that fall into all different kinds of categories that we relate to: the difficult person, the neutral person, the benefactor or person that we can't help feeling nicely about or because of when we think of them, or even just friends and family, people we love that, we may feel differently at different times about them. So just getting a little bit of grounding right now, touching in and noticing yourself here in the room and here inside your skin.
Sorry, switch chairs.
Sure.
See if I got it out.
Sure. And you're just going to notice right now how your legs connect your feet to your torso. And whatever noticing means to you. Maybe you feel the length of your leg. Notice the foot. Notice the torso. Left and right, or both at the same time. You're just noticing that connection that's there. And then you're going to notice how your arms connect your hands and your shoulders. And then notice how your neck connects your head and your chest. And then let yourself come into awareness of how the ground is connected to your entire body through your feet and also through the chair. And as you feel your connection to ground, see if you can let yourself rest, let your awareness rest in the area of your heart. We usually let our awareness rest up in our head, around our eyes somewhere. See if you can let awareness drop a little and rest around the heart area. And just hang out without trying too hard while I read a little and talk a little. And you can let me know if you have any questions, just interrupt me. So, loving kindness is the English translation of the Pali word metta. And those are Pali's the language the Buddha's words were originally recorded in the 1st century BCE, 400 years after he died. Metta also means friendliness, love, benevolence, and goodwill. In its fullest expression, metta is universal, unselfish, all-embracing love. The terms metta and loving kindness are used interchangeably in this book. Detailed instructions for cultivating loving kindness were first introduced by the Buddhist monk Buddhaghosa in the 5th century CE in the Visuddhimagga, which is the path of purification. To our knowledge, the Buddha gave only brief instructions for loving kindness meditation. The way we practice metta today is essentially Buddhaghosa's elaboration of a discourse given by the Buddha to a group of monks who were afraid to live in the forest. The following lines come from that discourse. May all beings be happy and secure. May their hearts be wholesome. Whatever living beings there are, feeble or strong, tall, stout or medium, short, small or large, without exception, seen or unseen, those dwelling far or near, those who are born or those who are yet to be born, may all beings be happy. Let none deceive another, nor despise any person whatsoever in any place. Let one not wish any harm to another out of anger or ill will. Just as a mother would protect her only child at the risk of her own life, even so, let one cultivate a boundless heart toward all beings. Let one's thoughts of boundless love pervade the whole world, above, below, and across, without any obstruction, without any hatred, without any enmity. Whether one stands, walks, sits, or lies down, as long as one is awake, one should develop mindfulness. This, they say, is the noblest living here. So the Buddha essentially prescribed loving kindness as an antidote to fear, and he encouraged his monks to remember this discourse as a means to cultivate that quality. The Buddha told his students to test everything he said on the basis of their own direct experience. Come and see. If you read the earliest Buddhist texts, you'll notice the Buddha was more of a psychologist than a religious leader. He offered a detailed map of the mind. His approach was based on objective internal observation, and the motivation behind his words was to alleviate emotional suffering. This accounts for modern psychology's careful study of the Buddha's insights from 2,500 years ago. In the 60s and 70s, as the baby boomers came of age, some intrepid Western seekers traveled to India and parts of Southeast Asia in search of new wisdom. Two such pilgrims, Sharon Salzberg and Joseph Goldstein, discovered mindfulness meditation in India. They returned home to the United States and, along with their friend Jack Cornfield, who had been a monk in Thailand, established a meditation center in rural Massachusetts. Their vision flourished. Sharon was also the first person to introduce metta meditation to a large Western audience through her book, Loving Kindness, The Revolutionary Art of Happiness. It was the Buddhaghosa who first emphasized the importance of self-kindness in metta practice. Buddhaghosa was careful to note that the purpose of self-kindness is to connect with our common wish to be happy, not to aggrandize the self, in quotes, which only causes more misery. When we recognize within ourselves the instinct for self-care, we're more inclined to see it in others and to work for their welfare as well. The message of this brief history is that you should feel free to tailor the practice to fit your own needs. The Buddha didn't lay down a fixed structure or language for cultivating loving kindness, and he wouldn't have wanted you to follow it slavishly anyway. You'll learn the basic principles of loving kindness meditation in this chapter so that you can achieve maximum benefit from the practice. So he talks about here now where metta builds on the practice or the foundation of mindfulness, and that dedicated practitioners of mindfulness or metta meditation develops similar states of mind, loving awareness or mindful compassion. There's a Zen saying, kindness is the fruition of awareness, and awareness is the foundation of kindness. So it's a variation on single focus meditations, which can be about an object or focusing on the breath or a mantra, or like we do sometimes use Adyashanti's question for inquiry, what happens if I allow everything to be as it is? Or maybe we spend time just feeling and being in our bodies, like noticing what it's like to inhabit our bodies. This is another variation of a focus practice for meditation. The reason that I share it frequently and repeatedly in this class is because there seem to be so many benefits, and I'm going to read to you about what some of those benefits are. He has a whole chapter dedicated in this book to the development over days or weeks of working up to the meditation that we do. Like, we go through the whole circle. We start with benefactor and go all the way through to the difficult person and then back to self. But he says, and I'm going to read you the instructions for that so you can do it on your own. He says to start with just the benefactor, just the easiest one, right? And alternate between that and self. And I'll read you the instruction. Um, so let's see, he starts with self and says, set aside 20 minutes for the purpose of giving yourself loving attention. And you sit comfortably, reasonably upright, and relaxed. Close your eyes, bring your attention to the heart region of your body. Take 3 slow, easy breaths from the heart. And then form an image of yourself sitting down. Note your posture on the chair as if you were seeing yourself from the outside, and feel the sensations in your body as you sit. Recall that every living being wants to live peacefully and happily, and you just connect with that deep wish, just as all beings wish to be happy and free from suffering. May I be happy and free from suffering. And then you let yourself feel the feeling of that, absorb the warmth of that kind of loving attention. Then, keeping an image of yourself sitting in the chair and feeling goodwill in your heart, you repeat the following phrases silently and gently. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. And then let each phrase mean what it says. And if necessary, repeat one phrase a few times for the sake of clarity. When we go through it, when I guide it, I do each phrase twice, just as a way of really getting to rest in the sentiment of each phrase. You can also repeat just one word of a phrase, like safe, 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 happy, happy. Take your time, keep an image of yourself in your mind's eye, enjoy your loving heart, and savor the meaning of the words. When you notice that your mind has wandered, which it will do after a few seconds, repeat the phrases again. If the words become meaningless, re-visualize yourself in the chair and offer yourself the phrases again. If both the image of yourself sitting and the words become vague or blurry, put your hand on your heart and recall your intention to fill yourself with loving kindness. Just as all beings wish to be happy and free from suffering, may I be happy and free from suffering. Then return to the phrases. Whenever you feel lost, return to the phrases. Let this exercise be easy. Don't try too hard. Loving kindness is the most natural thing in the world. Distractions will always arise, and when you notice them, let them go and return to the phrases. When your attention wanders, return to giving love to yourself. Sitting with yourself is like sitting with a dear friend who's not feeling well. You may not cure your friend, but you'll have offered the kindness he or she deserves. And then the ending is just to gently open your eyes. So he says this is an acquired skill. Some people have a natural talent for loving kindness or self compassion. But the main reason we have difficulty is because we have ideas about how we're supposed to feel. So we judge ourselves, which is the opposite of self compassion. Right? And then, even in the judging, when we notice that, we need to just notice and not judge ourselves about the judging ourselves. Okay. So there are a bunch of phrases that you can choose from if you want to develop this kind of a meditation for yourself. So those 4 phrases that he uses, I took that from a recording on his website. He has free loving kindness meditations you can stream. They're fairly short, 10 to 20 minutes. And I like the simplicity of that one. Safe, happy, healthy and strong, live with ease. But these are some examples of things that you can use. May I be happy and free from suffering. May I keep myself free from enmity, affliction, and anxiety and live happily. May I love myself just as I am. May I be truly happy. May I find peace in this uncertain world. May my happiness continue to grow. May I have happiness and the causes of happiness. May I live in peace without too much attachment and too much aversion. May I be free from sorrow. May I be free from physical suffering. May I care for myself with ease. May I love and be loved. Dear one, may you be happy and content. So you might notice as I was reading there that there were phrases that evoked a feeling for you. That's a clue to where you want to go with creating your own phrases or what phrases you might want to include. He says the idea is to find words that evoke tender, warm feelings inside you. They can be sublime, like poetry, or they can be mundane. Just keep them simple and easy to repeat. Um, Here's one. He said, during the uprising against the repressive government of Myanmar, Buddhist monks gathered in front of the home of Aung San Suu Kyi on September 22nd, 2007, and chanted, "May we be completely free from all danger. May we be completely free from all grief. May we be completely free from poverty. May we have peace in heart and mind." Meta phrases incline the heart toward peace and well being in spite of the terrible circumstances happening on the ground. You can tailor the phrases for everyday challenges in your own life. For example, if you're caught up in shame, you can repeat, "May I accept myself just as I am." Or if angry, "May I be safe and free from anger." Avoid being too specific about your wishes, such as, "May I get into the college of my choice," lest your wish become a demand for a particular outcome. Loving kindness is an inclination of the heart, not an attempt to manipulate the environment with our thoughts. He says try to use the same phrases when you sit down. The compassion meditation in the brain. So, this study by Richard Davidson and colleagues, monks with 10,000 to 50,000 hours of practice in non referential compassion meditation, unrestricted readiness and availability to help living beings. That's the definition of non referential compassion meditation. Were compared to novices with only 1 week of training. Both groups were outfitted with a head net of 128 EEG electrodes and then began to meditate. The group of monks produced exceptionally powerful gamma waves indicating intensely focused awareness that were 30 times stronger than the novice meditators. The wave patterns covered exceptionally broad areas of the monks' brains, and the wave patterns were synchronized. The unusual brain state could be quickly turned on by the experienced meditators, and it tended to linger during the rest periods rather than go into default mode. Also, the monks with the most experience had the highest levels of gamma waves. Davidson's research demonstrates that with intense practice, we can develop astonishing control over brain activity and evoke loving feelings at will, independent of an object or circumstances. Another study in Davidson's lab was designed to detect whether brain circuits that detect emotions could be strengthened through meditation. 16 monks with over 10,000 hours of training in non referential compassion meditation were compared to 16 novices who had a 2 week training period. The meditators' brains were imaged using fMRI as they reacted to sounds like a distressed woman, a baby laughing, background restaurant noise, and compared to novices, the monks showed increased activity in the insula, responsible for, that's the part of the brain, responsible for empathy and body awareness, and the temporal parietal juncture, where emotions of others are especially perceived in response to the sound of the distressed woman. Monks were more strongly detected, the monks more strongly detected all emotional sounds, positive, negative, and neutral, suggesting compassion meditation attunes the brain to process all sorts of emotional stimuli, not just to process suffering. And that's important because disconnection in our culture, and especially right now, is at an all-time high. People are more connected than ever, and they're actually lonelier than ever. And they've been measuring that. There's no better way to discover self compassion than when we feel bad. And that's the place where we tend to turn away, right? We tend to turn away from ourselves when we're not feeling well, right? It starts to feel bad and it's like a hot stove. Ooh, I'm not touching that, right? Let me distract myself. Let me do something. Let me stay really busy, right? Or a million other things that we do. Turn on the TV to distract ourselves. I love this poem. Somebody just brought this to me the other day. Um, um, he says, you want to use loving kindness because you don't want to just sit and stress yourself out on the cushion, because you just develop a habit of sitting and being stressed out. So the self-compassion practice is really important. Um, this is the last two verses. You can Google this poem and it comes up. It's a really amazing poem. Before you know, it's Naomi Shihab and the poem's called Kindness. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to mail letters and purchase bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere like a shadow or a friend. The disconnection is something that is spoken of in spiritual practice very frequently as the cause of all suffering, the root of all suffering, that our feelings of disconnection from others, which are enhanced by negative feelings or automatic thoughts of someone's malicious intention or other negative reasons why people do things, right? The lens of our past that we interpret the world through, that this disconnection is actually the thing that we're running from, the thing that causes us to suffer the most. And it's based in the false belief or false understanding that we are actually separate from each other and from everything else, that we are not actually all one. And this might sound like a fairly academic or not important distinction, but there's a time in our development, there's a time when we are young children before we develop the idea that we are separate, before we learn we are separate beings from everyone else, right? Before we learn there's I and me and mine, right? And then, oh, my stuff that I have to defend and protect. Before that time, life is just a flow. We're just part of that flow. We don't make a distinction of separateness. We learn that distinction. We're not born with a sense of I. And the spiritual process or the enlightenment or waking up process is sometimes described as a getting back to that state, right? Less preoccupied with the me, with the I, that actually we're much more at peace. We're much happier when our thoughts aren't consumed with our safety, with our selfhood, with our stuff, with our meanness, right? Did someone insult my intelligence, my feelings, my, right? So anything about me, right? What do I need to protect? Is there something I need to defend or protect about me? And you can investigate this for yourself. I tell people the easiest way you can investigate this is to go watch a sunset or some natural wonder. In that moment, there's no preoccupation with self. There's only beauty, there's only wonder. And it's in this moment, right? You can't watch a sunset in the future. You can only watch it right now. You can only take in the vastness of the ocean or the mountains or the forest right now. Okay? And sometimes there's even pleasure or joy or a sense of awe or freedom in contemplating the littleness of the self, right? When we see a picture on TV or somewhere of the big blue globe from space and contemplate that we're a speck, right? There's something incredibly orienting about that. Snaps us right back into the reality, the order of things, right? I can relax. I don't have to worry so much about me. I'm just a speck. Right? So you can experiment with that and investigate the possibility of that on your own. And this metta or loving kindness meditation, on its face, it might look like it's about being nicer to ourselves and others. And it is about that. But it's also about this deeper sense of connection, cultivating in our bodies, in our minds, in our emotional states, this sense of connection, the connectedness, right? Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to be healthy and free from suffering, right? We're so much more alike than we are different. And I could argue that the consciousness that's looking, the awareness that's looking out of your eyes right now at me, is the same consciousness that's looking back at you from my eyes. We don't know where it comes from, and we haven't found a place in the body where it lives. All we know is there's a bit of it that seems to reside here in the body called Cynthia that wakes up every morning and notices itself, and the bit that's, right, each of us, right? Consciousness seems the bit of consciousness that recognizes itself as yourself, right? We need a reference point. That's the fact of being human. We need a reference point. I need to know. I can't wake up every day and go, oh, who's that when I look in the mirror? I need to know who I am when people call my name, right? But that doesn't mean get confused or mixed up and think, oh, that is who I really am, or that's what I really am, or that's all I am, right? The what I am is the bit that's been looking out through my eyes, watching this body age and watching relationships grow and change and watching the world shift and change ever since I have a memory, even before I have a memory. That's the only bit that hasn't changed, the part that's looking, right? Everything else is conditioning. Everything else changes. And we fight the change, and in the fighting, we get confused and fight each other because we think we need to protect something. And this practice helps us tap into the feeling of connection, right? More easily, more quickly. So when the guy cuts you off on 3:15, you might start to feel the arising in the body, like, oh, there's the natural arising of something that wants to keep me safe. Like, ooh, heat. There's energy there that's meant to prepare me, mobilize me to protect myself if needed. Right? But Everything else that comes after, right? All the colorful names that arise in my mind and the gestures that I feel like I might like to make, or what I wish I could say to that person, right? What I imagine I could do if I caught up with them. That's all the stuff that's tacked on. That's all the stuff that comes from the conditioned part that forgets, right? That thinks that person is separate from me. Yeah. So I won't get to the other bits in here that I thought were so helpful, but I'll read you the list. He says, what metta is not. And there's a description of each of these things. It's not selfish, because sometimes people have a quarrel with the idea of loving kindness towards self, that it's selfish. But he says, even in all the religious writings in Christianity and Buddhism, and no matter what religion you look up, there's an assumption before they start talking about how you treat others. There's an assumption already built in that you love yourself. That's not the part we talk about. We don't talk about that part in church. We don't talk about that part when we train our children. We're only talking about other people. It's great to put other people first. And then, of course, what a kid's mind does with that is, oh, that means I should be last. Right? That's just what a kid brain does with that information. But implicit in all of these spiritual writings is that we take care of ourselves. Metta is not complacent. It's not positive affirmation. He says affirmations are an effort to encourage ourselves by saying things we may not believe, like, I'm getting stronger every day. It's not fooling ourselves that our situation is better than it is. The phrases must be intellectually credible in order for metta to work smoothly. It's not just a mantra, even though those phrases are repeated like a mantra. There's more to it than that. In addition to using the power of attention, metta works with connection, intention, and emotion. Okay, so it's not just a phrase we're repeating over and over. We're doing whatever it takes to cultivate a loving attitude. It's not sugarcoating. We're not trying to make the reality of our lives less harsh, not like rosy glass half full, put a positive spin on it. It's not a pity party. It's not self-indulgent to open to pain of ourselves and others. It's not just about good feelings. It's cultivating goodwill. Feelings come and go, but the ground of our being is universal. So is the wish to be happy and free from suffering. It's not exhausting. Exhaustion is the result of attachment, wanting things to be one way and not the other. Loving kindness and compassion stay away from the business of controlling reality. So it's actually more of a relief than a struggle. Some people might think that this kind of meditation is exhausting. It's also not demanding. Metta is always on the wishing side of the equation rather than the outcome side. Positive outcomes will certainly come with time, but we're primarily learning to cultivate a kind attitude no matter what happens to us or to others. We're sticking with the wish and remaining unattached to the outcome. That's unconditional love. Right? Isn't that the thing that if we imagined the perfect parent, right? We'd have a parent who had the wish for the best outcomes, but not attached to it. They can wish all the best things for us, but not forcing, not pressuring, not laying a trip or expectations, how to get there. Right? So before we take a little break, I'm going to read this one last little thing. I wish I had time for all the things I marked, but two things. So he says, in the words of the Buddha, Looking after oneself, one looks after others, and looking after others, one looks after oneself. What we think, feel, and do toward others shapes how we feel inside. And he's over and over, he says, for this chapter, in tandem with this practice is being self-compassionate. So not forcing this practice, developing a self-compassion or loving kindness practice in a self-compassionate and loving way, right? We can't force ourselves. It's like we can't tell ourselves to just chill out or let go or calm down. We can't tell ourselves to be self-compassionate either. It's something that we have to allow. We have to tiptoe up to. We have to work our way up to it. And he has tons of ideas in here for how to tailor the practice for your personality, for the way that you are, the way that you work, so that the practice can work for you. So here's one of my favorite quotes, and then we'll take a break. In the words of Albert Einstein, a human being is a part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts, and feeling as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. So the comment that Christopher Germer has is that possible? He says, well, sort of. We can feel connected even in the midst of disconnection by not abandoning ourselves in moments of pain. For example, it takes a lot of self-awareness and self-confidence to admit to oneself, after being snubbed by a friend, they're just not that into you. By not dodging what we're feeling inside, we can continue to look others straight in the eye. Yeah. So today we're going to do an extended metta meditation, and we'll still include a little bit at the end of the allowing everything to be as it is, but this is where we're doing something a little bit different today. I hope that's okay. Yeah. The research, I only read you about two studies in here, but there is study after study. I mean, the Dalai Lama has helped facilitate this kind of research that shows the way this type of meditation practice develops the part of our brain that is responsible for sensing ourselves and others. There are multiple parts, but the insula in particular, and that feelings of well-being, right? Just general well-being, right? Things that people take antidepressants for can come from this kind of meditation. There's even the one study I didn't get to read to you, says loving kindness meditation reduces back pain. I mean, there's almost nothing that they haven't studied this in connection with. Okay, so people have all kinds of fantastic stories of what they report. He has his own stories of, the grumpy clerk in the store when he's in India, and that after he's doing this meditation for 3 days, suddenly something happens, and it clicks, and he connects with the guy, and I've heard people over and over tell similar stories about the difficult person at work or the boss or the mother-in-law or somebody. And then don't know why, don't know what, didn't tell them that I was doing that meditation, and something is different. Something shifted. Okay. So go ahead and stretch your legs.
Take a picture of the front of the book.
Sure. Yeah. It's probably in my top 3 all-time favorites.
It's a good idea.
If this is something I'm interested in.
Yeah. Kristen Neff also has a good book on self-compassion. It's written much less. He's a little bit more academic, but I think still accessible. And Kristen Neff's book is a little less so, and she tells a lot of stories about, in that book, her relationship with her son, I think, who has autism. I'm not sure. I think, and her just the application of all of these principles, because I think they write together and work together. And she's even got like DVDs or CDs you can listen to that are more how to develop this kind of practice. Kristen Neff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I like this book because he, all throughout, he says, okay, now stop and do the exercises. Don't just plow through this whole chapter, right? Don't just keep reading. You need to stop. There's this one cartoon in here that's pretty cool where it's like a bunch of spies in a restaurant, and one's watching the door and one's watching the booth, and the guy says, I've got a little job for you, Kretschmer. I want you to infiltrate the IRS and sow the seeds of compassion.
When you were talking about the sunset, it reminded me of Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for what is it?
Meaning.
Meaning.
Yeah.
And where he, do you remember? I remember after all these years of reading that one little passage where when he was, in the concentration camp in Germany, and it was a beautiful sunset, and how all of the prisoners came outside and the horrific guards and the realization that it's there for everybody. It's that unity of everybody being that thread that we really all are in this together.
Yeah.
And I always thought the most beautiful things, though, that's always stayed with me. That the things in nature, it doesn't make any difference what your economic status is or your race, your ethnicity,
what you believe, anything.
No, it's there for all.
Yeah.
And because we're all connected. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
And, it reminds me how I have heard people say, the disconnection, the feelings of disconnection and loneliness that we're suffering it might be Native Americans, I've heard say this, that it's fundamentally a disconnection from the earth, right? Because, like you're saying, right, that connection, right, when we go outside and we're in nature, we can't help but feel that, right? There's that awe, that feeling of our place in nature, and then we're just a human, right? And as we lose that feeling of connection with the earth, we lose also that feeling of connection to each other. Yeah.
Especially young. I was just talking to somebody the other day about young people and not. I know for myself, I don't use my phone and stuff all that much, but more than I ever thought I would. But younger people where they don't even know how to read how you're feeling right now because
Yeah.
it's all here, and
Yeah.
they don't. We're losing that whole ability
That's
to
right.
connect and to read somebody else of how they are, what they're feeling.
Right.
It is ironic that technology, I mean, a lot of that on the one hand helps you be connected, but on the other hand, it puts distance between people. I mean, a lot of my younger relatives, I mean, rarely talk on the phone, they only text, but when you text, you're kind of a step removed than when you're having a conversation, even on the phone, let alone, of course, in person. Better,
yeah, she can't hear a person's inflection in their voice.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a way of kind of keeping distance.
That's right. And Stephen Porges writes about this part of our nervous system called the social engagement structures or their social engagement system. It's where we read modulation of voice, facial expression from here up, and what people are doing with their hands and arms. And that we, through interaction, right, interpersonal interaction, we develop the structures of the brain that are responsible for empathy, for empathic connection. And they're measuring, there are significantly reduced measured levels of empathy for people with the higher levels of technology exposure. It's, it's a simple, it's pretty simple. Our brains develop the ability to connect with and interact with other people by connecting with and interacting with other people. So if you remove that, yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen because they're going to be able to take the phones away.
I know. I know. I saw this brilliant you guys know, have you heard of the comedian Louis C.K.?
Mm-hmm.
So he was on one of those late night shows the other night. You could probably find it on YouTube if you Google it. Oh my gosh, it was brilliant. I posted it on I think I shared it on the Facebook page, so you can go back there if you want to find the Mind Body Spirit Academy Facebook page. He basically named it. He's like using his particular brand of graphic language and stuff. But he's basically saying, my kids don't have phones. And the reason is because I think people are losing the ability to just sit here. Right? Just sit here. And he proceeded on national television on a network show to name, that empty, sad, little bit of sad feeling that comes up inside, right? That makes you automatically reach for your phone, right? To see it. Did anybody call or text me or, right? Or some other distraction, whatever that might be. He's like, we're losing the ability to just be with that and be okay with it. And he basically named it and said, it's screwing us up. And he told a story about some little incidents of this Springsteen song that came on, and the little empty feeling came up, and he was feeling sad, and he pulled over to the side of the road and had himself a good cry, right? Instead of reaching for his phone. And it took my breath away. Like, there's this person, like a regular person, not some guru. But I love when ordinary people are willing to very publicly just name something very real, kind of the way, Hank Williams would sing about dark stuff, and people just like they were attracted, like, magnets, right? When somebody can name that kind of truth, right? It plucks that string inside, and we go, yes, right? Somebody else knows what that feels like. I'm not alone. Okay. Any lights you guys would like to adjust in here before we start? Are you okay with this one?
I don't know. That's fine.
What do you guys think?
Turn it down. I promise I won't go to sleep.
Yeah. I generally like it darker, but yeah. I
Free
don't wanna fall
will.
asleep either.
Anybody can sleep if they want to. There's free will. Okay. So I'm not going to use a timer. I'm just going to watch the clock. If that's okay with you guys. And you're going to just let yourself come into awareness of your chair. And if you could, just as a way of, because I think the body scan helps drop us into our bodies, I'm going to name parts of the body, starting with the top of the head. And you're just going to let your awareness go to that place and be aware of or notice whatever's happening in that part of your body. And it's like you're going to go there and then notice it and then release it. And then go to the next part that I name. Okay? So you're going to start just with noticing top of the head. And then the face. And then the sides of the head. And then the back of the head and back of the neck. And then tops of the shoulders. And then upper arms. And then forearms, lower arms. And then hands. And then chest and throat. And then diaphragm and belly. And then notice your hips and your bottom seated in the chair. then notice thighs or upper leg, legs above the knee. And then notice knees for a moment. And then notice lower legs, front and back. And then notice feet from heels all the way to toes. And then let your attention come up to the place where you notice breathing happening. And then let yourself notice the place where your heart seems to be. Just letting yourself rest wherever you imagine your heart is. And perhaps you can even feel your heart beating. And then gently let yourself come to rest in the space between where you imagine breathing is coming from and where the heart is. Maybe those are the same place. You're just going to let your attention rest in between the heart and the place where breathing seems to be happening. And as you rest there, see if you can get an image of yourself in your chair with your eyes closed, at rest, and make these wishes for yourself. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy and strong. May I live with ease. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy and strong. May I live with ease. And then just take a moment to notice whether you've been able to follow along with the feeling of those words, or whether you still have an image of yourself. Can you still maintain contact with the image of yourself or the feeling in the words? And just come back as best you can. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy and strong. May I live with ease. Gently coming back to the image of yourself and the feeling in the words, may I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy and strong. May I live with ease. Coming back again, connecting with the image of yourself as best you can without forcing, right? Letting yourself be at ease and see yourself resting at ease in the chair. Just coming back and repeating, may I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy and strong. May I live with ease. Coming back to the image of yourself and the wishes in these words. Safe, happy, healthy, and strong. And living with ease. Happy, safe, healthy, live with ease. So now you're going to shift to making these wishes for someone else. And you're going to choose someone who, when you think of them, you automatically and easily, spontaneously have good feelings, feelings of fondness, warmth, goodwill. And you're going to hold an image of them in your mind. And as best you can, without trying too hard, send the feeling of these wishes to them. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy and strong. May you live with ease. Coming back to the image of them and feeling the wishes in the words for them. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy and strong. May you live with ease. And just coming back again to the image of them and the feeling and the wishes suggested by the words happy, safe, healthy and strong, live with ease. Happy, safe, healthy and strong, live with ease. And then coming back to the image of yourself seated in the chair, seeing if you can connect with the wish for yourself to have the same thing that you wish for everyone, that everyone wishes for themselves. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy and strong. May I live with ease. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy and strong. May I live with ease. And then noticing if there's any efforting or any feeling like you're working very hard, and giving yourself a chance to rest now at the end of this meditation, and investigating with the familiar question, what happens if I allow everything to be as it is in this moment? As you continue to feel your body resting in the chair and your awareness resting in the place between your breathing and your heart, just noticing, what would it be like if I allowed everything to be as it is in this moment? What is the experience of that, or what might be the experience of that? What do I imagine? Bringing yourself back gently if thoughts carry you away. Just noticing, oh yeah, all I'm doing is seeing what happens if I allow everything to be as it is. All I'm doing is noticing what the experience of that is. And perhaps what you notice is something akin to seeing the beautiful sunset. Perhaps everything stops for a moment or becomes silent, spacious. And just let yourself enjoy, savor one more minute of that spaciousness. And being gentle with yourself as you reach the end. See if you can allow or imagine some energy moving out into your limbs, to arms and legs, and becoming gentle movements in your fingers and toes. Allowing yourself as much time as you need to transition from your meditation space. Thank you for being here this evening. Namaste.